Out how we got to where we are. Then we'll have Lucia, she's going to tell you what's actually in the UK, and then we'll move on to child abuse in general, okay? So first of all, guys, I'm going to start by telling you our government have signed us up in a global rollout of sex education. This sex education sexualizes children from birth. They want sexual stimulation, pleasure, consent. For the time they know, they want them to have sexual intercourse, right? So let's start. So back in 2010, we got this document here from the World Health Organization, right? This is the one that wants children sexually stimulated from the age of, well, from birth, okay? By the time they're 9, they want sexual intercourse. The UK government signed up to this, okay? This document tells us that in 2017, the UK government signed up to it. In 2018, we got this new document, the UNESCO one. This document tells us it's a revised version of that, okay? In here, we got rights. Children's rights, bodily rights, sexual rights, okay? If you get a chance, come and read your children's sexual rights. It's not nice, right? So from this document here, this starts from age 5, which is a little bit better, but it's not. Pleasure, consent, stimulation, masturbation, sexual rights, and so on. With this document as well, we got the sexual stimulation. 242 schools in England, okay? They removed this overnight. This is United Nations as well, guys, right? What's this got to do with us in Wales? Because we devolved. Page 4 of our RSC draft says to refer to UNESCO. So, we are not devolved, are we?
No.
We've also had documents from other schools in South Wales as well, and when you click on the links, it takes you through to England, guys. Our government is denying this. We've got freedom of information requests, we've got letters, we found letters. The chair of the Education Committee denied it. She denied no parental opt-out. We found a letter online between her and Kirsty Williams talking about the no parental opt-out. Now in this draft it's telling you, you might have a parental opt-out, okay? This was February 2019. By January 2020, they announced in the news, you got no parental opt-out. This legislation starts from age 3. The last time they changed our legislation in this country was 20 years ago. This document was in play 2 years ago, guys, right? This is sexual stimulation from birth. They wanted kids to consider their gender from age 0 to 4. By the time they're 6, consolidate their gender. Sexual rights, the state got a right to administer medication to a child without their consent, okay? Guys, you need to start looking into this and the statistics of things that's going on. We keep hearing time and time again that they would never do that, right? They would never implement that. Guys, this year, these are your policy makers. These are your educators. These are your school governors. This is your children's commissioners. These are educators making the rules for our children. They are educating our children. But they wouldn't do this. They wouldn't do this. These are convictions. These are not accusations, these are convictions. Please read them, guys, they're disgusting. There's 10-year-old children walking around with dog collars. There's people being beaten up, raped and urinated over by our policy makers, our politicians, our councillors, our governors and our mayors, okay? They are on this list. I'm going to pass you over to Lucia now so she can tell you what is in England and what is in Scotland, guys. Okay, what's happening right now?
Well done, Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Kim. So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming into Wales if we allow it. So I'm going to talk about the evidence in the UK of these classes that have already been taught. So Kim touched on the 242 schools. It was a pilot scheme in England. In these 242 schools, they were teaching children as young as 6 about sexual stimulation. They were also teaching children that adults, is there children around here? There are some children, so just to be aware, there's a bit of content here that you may not want your children to hear. So sorry? Unless you send them to school.
Yeah!
Unless you send them to school. So if you don't want your children to hear and be taught about things that I'm about to be talking about now,
don't send them to school.
Going to school. So where was I? 242 schools, the pilot scheme. It was criticised because it talked about self-stimulation for children, and it talked about men and women fitting together like a jigsaw. It didn't talk about the age of consent, but it was more like they talked about it was something that adults do. Children like doing things that adults do because they like to be grown up. So it's sexualizing children and getting them to do things that they enjoy, that they think that could be good. So they actually show it as a good thing. So I'm just going to move on to Scotland. In Scotland, the education, which they will have the same rollout as what is going to be taught in Wales. In Scotland, we have this art, well, it's actually an education video for children. It looks all cartoony and it looks all bright and exciting for children. Now, in this education video, he talks about we've got only 40% of women like anal. They actually teach children in classes in primary school how to put a banana in a Nutella tin, actually teaching them about anal sex.
Is where the Holland Street will come. Say that again. Is where the Holland Street will come. Street will come boring.
Okay, so it's got here about porn. So he talks about straight porn being boring.
Straight white porn is boring, duration's better.
Oh, yeah.
And then we got amateur, mature.
Then we've got amateur and mature sex. They talk about this in this exciting video that he's showing.
Let's see that, Kim.
This is somebody over at Cinema Favour, right? So what he says before this, he says amateur, mature. What does he mean by amateur? Is that mature? Babies, children. Guys, it doesn't need much imagination to say this is Scotland in the classroom that they play to your kids with music.
What's the next?
What is it?
Oral sex.
Okay, the next one is oral sex. They're showing about oral sex in the curriculum. We got hardcore porn, so they're promoting hardcore porn to children, and they actually say that pornography is a healthy way of having sex. They actually show that in schools.
Well, they talk a lot about not getting pregnant. Their way of not getting pregnant are same sex relationships and anal sex. They want children to have anal sex instead of normal sex to get pregnant. So what they do to celebrate the fact you don't get pregnant when you have sex with somebody of the same sex, you got 25% more chance of having an orgasm, girls, according to this. So we're telling children, you know, if you want an orgasm, you're better off going with somebody of the same sex. Plus it stops you getting pregnant. Guys, I think you should come and read these because we can't really read them out in front of the children. The stuff it says on here, right, we've had to Google because we didn't know what it was. But it's sexual acts with bodily fluids, in and out, sucking and back out and stuff like that, guys. These are words they're using in your lessons, right? You need to read this stuff, guys. This is real. This is the SNP curriculum.
Kim, how old are these children?
Right, so the porn and bondage are comp age, right? But the banana and the Nutella are age 6 upwards. How they found out about this in Scotland, a journalist's son, a document fell out of his school bag. A lot of these lessons have come to light through accidental, apart from one school in England sent out a letter beforehand. And when the parents kicked off, that school said it was a typing error. It was not a typing error because it happened in another 241 schools. So this is, like this year now, anal, right? It's not just the insertion of the penis, it's toys. It's telling children to use toys and objects. Now if you look into this, right, there's something called FBI, it's foreign body insertion. Children should not be putting objects into their bodies. There's not a lot of studies. There's 1,000 studies done on kids. The rectums are collapsing. They have to have something called a 3D repair on them. But this is safeguarding kids, according to that. And that's it, guys, really. You need to have a look, right? Because what they use is cartoons. It's like a John Lewis advert. You've got the music, you've got the colours, you've got the lights. And they're tying up chickens. They're tying up chickens for like bondage, you know. You've got to see these images. Only 6% of women are squirters and they squirt lemon at the screen. Only 22% like a hot load in the face, they put hot sauce onto ice cream. Only 30% will swallow and they got a pancake with the cream going on the face. You've got to look at this stuff, guys. We didn't write it, but these are the lessons that's in the UK now. Anyone that knows the Welsh Government knows what happens in Scotland. We copy down here, okay? But we've also found connections that all three curriculums are interlinked, right? We've found links on our documents. We've also found a shill campaign in England as well, guys, right? There's a shill campaign in England telling the parents, selling the parents this information for £500. So, but we've got to fight the law here, guys, the legislation. We need it off the bill, because it'll be on there, and like I said, only 2 years ago, that document's in place for birth, right? Now, this document you're playing with now is from age 5, which looks better. But unless you know about rights, bodily rights, and sexual rights, guys, they're screwing us over. Plain and simple, they're screwing us over.
I just want to add as well that there's literature in the schools and they were actually pixelated because they were too inappropriate for the 6 o'clock news. There was also Richard Lucas, who was from the Scottish Party, and he was shushed at a conference full of adults. He was shushed because the things that he was saying was inappropriate for a group of adults, yet he was actually just teaching, he was just telling them about the information that was being given to children as young as 6. It was appropriate for 6-year-olds, according to the government, but it was inappropriate for a group of adults. So we really need to see, we really all need to be aware of what our governments want to put in front of our children, because the more of us that are aware of it, the more of us that can actually fight against this legislation.
Can I just say one more thing? One more thing, guys, right? Not one single campaign in this world has won. Every single time this comes into a state or a country, it does not go. It has never gone away. Nobody has ever overturned this. We have to. We have to in Wales, and that's why we drove up north. We can get to north and south in one day. We can get from east to west in one day. We have to do it. We have to do it here. We did the Romans, we can do this, guys, right? The buck has to stop with us. That's how serious it is. Like I said, nobody's ever overturned this. We've got to. We've got to. We cannot leave our kids grow up in that. No way all day. We're going down the road to legalising paedophilia, and I don't care what anyone says. Those are pie policies. I'm a criminologist, and I'm telling you, those are barriers to disclosure and models of offending. Those are not educational documents.
No. Well said, Kim.
Just wanting to add a few things and touch on a few things. Firstly, about what's happening with the schools in South Wales, particularly in my borough, Torfaen, particularly in my town, Cwmbran, where they have started sending out letters saying that they're implementing the new RSE, which leads confusion because the words RSE shouldn't be getting used yet because the legislation hasn't passed. And then they're also telling parents, but this is the same policy we've always had in place. So parents are being reassured, yet at the same time we've got Lynn Eagle, we've got Kirsty Williams, then telling the parents that we can't tell them what they're going to be receiving because it hasn't been written yet.
And it won't be written until the legislation has passed. So I am trying to tell these parents, whatever your school is telling you, that they are teaching and that this is going to stay and that we are wrong. We are not. What you are going to teach with this new RSE you will not receive until September 2022. The school cannot promise you that their policies are not going to change. Schools are not in charge of their policies. They don't write it. They are just told to implement it. And what's going to happen to those teachers who don't want to implement that? Risk losing their jobs. Schools are not educated on this themselves. And then to pick up on a few of these things, so throughout this campaign, the biggest thing we have thrown at us all the time is how children need to be taught how to consent. It is illegal. Children cannot consent. You will never be able to stand in court and say, I had I had sexual contact with that child because they let me, they consented. That person is still going to prison. A child cannot consent. To teach them how not to consent, you are teaching them how to consent. Teaching them which touch is good and which touch is bad gives them the options of deciding which touch they feel is good and which touch is bad. Not all abusers, in fact most abusers, are not violent. They trick that child into thinking what's going on is love, is normal, that it's okay. So you cannot teach a child the difference between, because a manipulator is going to trick that child no matter what. And this is what we are trying to say, this does not safeguard against sexual abuse. And just to add, we want to know what training a teacher is going to have. If a teacher's job is now to save children from sexual abuse, what training are they having? What are they having put in place for the influx of children they're expecting to come forward with abuse due to this education? We don't want questions answered after, we want them answered before. So we need to remove this from the legislation and then let's have a conversation about how the hell we are going to protect our children from the riddled world of paedophilia that is amongst them.
That's right.
Now, I know there's lots of others talking, so like I said, please, we need to get petitions signed, we need to be campaigning again outside the Senedd. I know you are all far away from Cardiff, but we need Wales all together to come together. We drove 5 hours to come up here talking about this, and now it's you to come down to us and help us get this stopped. And that's all we've got to say. So thank you for taking the time to listen to us today.